Pause.
Pause.
Hang on, just wait until I get
Yes.
this. So,
Ready? I'd like to bring the meeting to order and let's do the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for everybody who could be here. Okay. The agenda. Anybody have a chance to read over the minutes from last meeting? May I get a motion to accept the minutes from last meeting?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, second, and any opposed? No opposed? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. I guess new business. Shall we talk about the subdivision ordinances?
Yeah, that's under old business.
Okay, all right. Okay, new business. Anybody? Nothing? Okay. Lonnie, you have any new business?
No new business.
Okay. Moving right along, old business. We talk about the different ordinances for the subdivisions for sunny side.
The subdivision control ordinance.
Okay,
And I'll go ahead and elaborate a little bit on that. You all received a packet of, an ordinance that I proposed. Few other communities have used the same one, found it duplicated, and just asked everybody to go through, see what you like, what you don't like. One of the parts on here, and I'm not sure if we could fit it into this subdivision ordinance. When it comes to the remodeling of a lot of homes, the facade replacement. One of the communities I've seen have had. Want to call it a moratorium on vertical metal siding, especially exposed screws and that sort of thing. So as you can see, there's places around here, their siding will fall apart, they'll take it off and just cover it with whole bond metal with exposed screws and some of that. I know in a lot of other states, for instance, California, you can't have fireproof exteriors. So basically metal. So with this here, and there's a couple we had that I had approved that is still metal siding, but there's no visible screws. So, it don't resemble your
so
traditional.
it's tucked underneath, just like siding.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So I don't know if in there, that'd be on page 4 through 10, somewhere in there. But something to think about. A lot of that is to help stop the depreciation of our neighborhoods. And that's what the moratorium that other counties are looking at right now, and that's their concern. Does it actually devalue properties? I don't know, but seeing some moratoriums, so it is a contributing factor to some of these cities, something to consider. Where we would put it in a subdivision control ordinance. If most of these little plots of land throughout the city is an actual subdivision, might be dated 80 years ago.
This is the one we're working on.
Yes. So, is there some type of verbiage we could put in that would also any current houses within the city limits that does not sit within a subdivision? Just, one of the ideas that I come up with, if something to consider, that was one of the notes I had here on my front page.
Lonnie, I'm not talking about subdivisions, but buildings downtown. I think we should have some regulation on the kind of sidings, facades that we can have on buildings.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mention any buildings in particular, but when buildings have like shiplap on it and aluminum siding and stuff like that, that's really not what you're supposed to have. They should be brick buildings.
Exactly. I had, right now I'm using our non-conforming ordinances because they don't look like the neighbors or surrounding areas. Because I've had a few come in and want to put that type of metal on downtown buildings. And I wouldn't permit it because of non-conforming. And that's what brought up this whole concept of let's specify that somewhere. And I don't necessarily know the proper verbiage or anything, but I wanted to bring that up for some concern, something to talk about, keeping in mind with our subdivision ordinance.
If I might suggest, could we just start with page 2, because or page 1, I've got notes throughout and I don't want to be jumping back
Sure.
and forth.
Yeah, that's fine,
Yeah, and this here, an hour,
because I got notes too, and I don't wanna,
we're not gonna get all the way through it, but
The first question I have, and I've tried to figure it out, but on page 2, item E2, the first sentence, there's a word in there, I have no idea what it means. The division of any lot or any parcel of land into a subdivision is defined in this ordinance by the use of, I don't know what that word is.
it is,
that is probably supposed to be meets and bounds.
Meets and bounds, okay.
so that's ME,
Legal description. I mean, it's referring to a legal description that you can use for.
so it's a typo?
So is that a typo or is that?
No, that's correct. Meets and bounds is how you describe a legal description on a deed.
Okay,
Okay.
So it is spelled correctly.
It is.
Oh, okay.
okay. Meets and
I looked at that too, and
Yeah.
I didn't circle it, but,
It's an antiquated term, but
Yeah.
yeah.
okay, all right.
Okay. Then in item 4, it states that the president and secretary of the commission, in writing the approval, that should also receive the seal of the planning commission.
What line item was that?
4.
B4,
Or page 3.
page 2.
Page 2. We're still page 2. It doesn't mention,
use
the seal of the commission.
There you go. No plat or replat of a subdivision. Okay, when the jurisdiction of the commission shall be recorded to approve that commission. Do we have a seal?
Yeah,
Okay. I didn't know. So it would be stamped and then a signature.
which is something that all the subdivisions receive, the stamp of the land commission on it certifying that it's passed,
The original copy.
the original copy. I think that's by other.
So you think
ordinances.
you're stating that it should be written in here saying it should be also sealed. The original copy.
Yeah, and receive the commission seal,
And that's D what for?
D4. No plat or replat of a subdivision of land located within the jurisdiction of the commission shall be recorded until it has been approved by the commission, and such approval shall shall have been printed in writing on the plat by the president and secretary of the commission, and then, and receive the commission seal.
Oh, you want to add that? Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, because I didn't see that.
I think that's required by other ordinance, isn't it?
Some, yes, and some recorders require that. So yeah, that's not a real big deal, but yes, adding it to that.
Anybody else have anything on page 2? Okay.
Not me.
Yeah, on page 3, top of page, item 6. In all subdivisions, due regard shall be given to the preservation of historical sites and natural features such as large trees, water courses, and scenic views. Who is going to give that due consideration? Shouldn't some entity be assigned that responsibility?
That's where a lot of that comes into our non-conforming ordinance, because we don't have an actual historical sites that's
Right.
deemed as historical. So a lot of that, like for instance, I don't know, how would you explain how this is saying historical?
Is a tree
sites?
considered a historical site?
Well, if we don't define it in the actual subdivision ordinance, it's kind of one of those mushy terms that,
But is it anywhere in the state statute or a state ordinance stating that a certain tree, a certain diameter can be considered a historical site? Because there are some really large trees in Knox community. And unless they become a hazard to the homeowner and or property damage to a neighbor,
I would have to say,
all I can say is we at the church, we cut one down and it was huge.
yeah,
But it was infringing on the next door neighbor. It was also losing quite a few limbs because it was sold and it was dying. So
Yeah. With the historical trees, for instance, like over at the courthouse, this particular tree was planted in regards to this person at this time. That's what I consider an historical tree. Something that's been recorded, platted, has a sign that's designated.
I could see that.
Because a lot of courthouses, and I know in Mishawaka, they've got a few trees that are deemed historical. I remember as a child going to a field trip where some Indian treaty was signed under this certain tree, and it was deemed a historical tree. So,
I'm sure back in the day, some people in the community might got together and said, we're gonna plant this tree in remembrance of
and
building this building.
But my question is, who is the deciding factor
yeah,
on what is historical? It doesn't say, there's no entity named as the deciding factor. Is it going to be city clerk treasurer? Is it going to be Lonnie? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be the historical society? Who is going to make that determination as to whether it's historical or not?
I would think, I would put the burden on the historical society because Lonnie, really, his plate is pretty full.
Yeah.
And as far as the treasurer, the clerk treasurer here in town, I mean, yeah, she could probably look something up on the computer, but it would take away from her duties as
or
the clerk treasurer.
or do we strike that line?
Yeah, do we admit it?
That's the other question. We can take things out. We don't have to
Well, it doesn't,
approve it, change it.
I would be against taking it out. It just says you have to give due regard. I think it should be our responsibility. That's what I think. I mean, and through us, you are like our representative, so, I mean, like if we decided that it was not, like they're destroying a stream or something like that.
And that's where it comes down to. This is another point, and Justin will probably agree with me on that. With the planning commission, mainly, besides subdivisions and a lot of that stuff, is the 2 mile jurisdiction. Did we leave that up to, say, city council when we're only dealing with inside the city limits? Because city council makes multiple decisions on what is approved in the city, what is not approved. Because we don't really, I think, want it, because we're over subdivisions in the 2 mile jurisdiction. Do we want to get in a conflict with the county stating whether it's our responsibility or theirs, which we've had for years?
And it would be a conflict with the county outside the 2 mile or within that 2 mile. I could see
would
it.
think that if we assume responsibility, we do have in our rules and procedures, rules of procedure, appeal process. So I wouldn't want to throw it back on city council. They've got enough to do too, not just Lonnie. We don't.
What's your view on that?
That would fall within our responsibility.
But I understand what you're saying, but also wouldn't it be more under the umbrella of the historical society? Couldn't they be involved in that?
There'd be no reason why we couldn't ask for their input.
Yeah,
But I think you would be remiss going outside the structure of city government to give them the authority to make decisions within your ordinance.
no, I wouldn't say we've given them an authority. My suggestion would be have them look anything up to give advice, advise us on certain,
And that's where, like what Jim was saying with using the appeal process.
Yeah.
That we have set forth.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, you'll have to educate me a little bit too, Lonnie, with your approval of your subdivision. I mean, this is referred, I mean, you're the hearing authority, right? The planning commission is the hearing authority to make a recommendation to city council for approval, city council approves it.
Yes.
So built into the approval of all these things is the procedural due process string that we follow already, right? So you're asking who monitors these things? Well, you're the hearing authority, so, you all push something up the chain to city council and say, okay, this is based upon solicitations via public input. These are the concerns they have. You make a recommendation to city council. They ultimately vote to approve something or not. So, with regard to your question, it's a good question. It's, well, who's in charge of making that decision? Well, you all are responsible for gathering the thoughts and input from people. And if one of those concerns is you've got a historical tree or historical monument or something that could be affected, you voice those concerns and make a recommendation to city council. And presumably when you make that recommendation, you say, it's a positive or negative recommendation based on factors A, B, and C, and city council ultimately makes the call, procedurally speaking. So it's kind of a mushy way of saying you're both responsible for making the decision because you make the recommendation to city council, but they can overrule you or override you. So, it could be one of those, your point, Jeff, you pay due consideration to things like, are we cutting down a historical tree here? I mean, that's a concern you could voice and make a recommendation to city council, but ultimately it falls on them to approve or not approve the subdivision plat. And if the reason for not approving it is.
We can make a recommendation that we approve it conditionally on such factors.
So with that being,
We have done that.
with city council things, that may be something, instead of them throwing us back the entire subdivision ordinance, have it in there upon approval, have them see that line. That this is, we can write it up however we recommend and have them as specific, whether they choose to strike it, whatever. So we don't have to go through the entire ordinance again, word that like we want it, and give city council, when they approve it, a chance to strike it. Because they're not gonna review this entire ordinance, chances are.
No.
They're gonna review the stuff that
Bill is,
say none of us could necessarily agree on. You know, due to 5 different reasons. And let city council say, hey, this one here, you've got to pay attention at this particular line, make a choice.
well, it'd be,
And it will be a one-on-one tree thing, or tree or whatever.
Mhm.
It's not like but you also, the other side of that sword is that tree gonna be a disruption to property damage? Or is it gonna be a problem for, the city sewer system? Or is it gonna be a problem for
for the street department. There's a lot of different factors. You have to kind of look into it and go, well, if we make this individual tree a historical site, where's it located in the city? Is it gonna be a hazard one day during the winter where we have bad weather and it goes kaput?
The other thing to keep in mind, that if the trees are in the right of way, that is automatically Board of Works. Plain, simple.
Well, if you drive around the town, most trees are between the sidewalk and the curb,
Yeah.
are into the, right there at the end.
But like,
And-
for instance, and this is just for instance, how people will plant a tree in somebody's memory, say this section is going bad and somebody of great importance is no longer with us, the city chooses to plant a tree in their regard on a property in a park.
Two things that we've got to keep in mind. We're not just talking trees. That there are many things mentioned in that, not just trees. So let's not get hung up just on trees.
no,
The second thing is, we're not determining anything to be historically preserved,
no.
or whether it's historical or not. That's not our decision. If it has been deemed, then we have to give it consideration. But that's not up to us to say, this waterway, this scenic view, this tree, this whatever, we're going to declare as historical. We don't have that authority.
No. I know
So we
that.
don't need to get caught up on those two items.
So I've taken a lot of notes on that, and when I go retype that up, see if, the commission approves of that, I took several different notes. And see, when I go back over it, and see if, I know it's of a concern, so I try to put it in a fair, also legal aspects of what our position actually is. And see if we can approve on what I write up on that. So just, keep a note. Like I said, I took notes on that, so. So we can go ahead and move on instead of getting really super hung up on this. Is just super rough draft right now.
You have any, you want to keep going or you want me to go next?
I don't have anything on page 4 if you do.
On page 4, the only thing I had is, the administration and definitions. On number 2, the city of Knox shall receive the right to withhold improvements, local permits for the remainder of 10% of the undeveloped lot in a finished subdivision plat if the developer has failed to install all of the improvements shown in a secondary plat or a final construction plan, except for the sidewalk. Sidewalks may install each lot by individual. And then I read later on where they have it defined a little bit more. So,
And what that's talking about, for instance, the Johnson subdivision, there was supposed to be 3 or 4 lots held back as the bond. Those were sold off very first. That's where it's talking about 10% of that land actually being held until all of the obligations are met, such as stormwater runoff, and all of that. That's what protects the city and the planning commission to make sure that is followed through. So that's the way that's working.
So kind of in lieu of a performance bond.
Exactly. But they set 4 parcels of land aside as the bond to the city to secure that. Now, if is 10% enough to cover roads, to pave the road?
No.
Here in our subdivision, those lots are 26,000. And I believe we were 180,000 to pave. So 10% may not be enough to cover what is there. With that, I would say 12%, maybe 15%.
Yeah, I don't think 10% is enough. And a prime example is what we've run into with Sunny Brook
Mhm.
subdivision. There are 4 lots still to be developed with an unfinished road. Prime example, there was no surety bond put up. There's no land laid aside to get it done.
When SOPs came in to put that, your subdivision in, somehow the city got stuck with all the dewatering. And I always thought the developer should have paid, and that was a lot of money. Dewatering.
And that is where our, the whole subdivision part of it, why our ordinance is so old. It don't have none of that in it. That's why it's so important as we're going. I've already issued 3 permits for the new subdivision. They're moving along.
Well, my question is, that's why I brought it up. I don't think 10% with the economics nowadays, that's not enough to cover the city, whatever they put out to do whatever they need to do in a subdivision.
And
But do we want Lonnie to research this and find out maybe what other
this here's what
counties do and
2 other municipalities already have exactly that. The reason is you also don't want to get that number too high to scare
you don't want
the
to, I
developers
realize
away.
that, but we gotta be economically,
And that's where it's approved to begin with. So with that number, I'm recommending 12, but no more than 15%, because we also don't want to scare potential developers away.
personally, I don't think 15% is that bad. Because if a developer is gonna come in here and spend $200,000, 15% is, to me, is not, I don't think it's unreasonable. Now, with the fiscal environment we have nowadays, does that sound justified, Justin? I mean,
If you're talking a small subdivision of 5 lots, you're talking 1 lot.
well, why couldn't we rewrite it or re-explain it saying X amount of lots would be at a 10%, and if anything greater than this amount would be 15%. That way you have a little bit of flexibility for somebody who's coming in to a developing area, like at the end of Roosevelt, you get behind the Hansons, you got that little space there, it belongs to, you said Johnson?
Yeah, and that's the same thing.
And I don't know how big it is, but there's a road, even though a lot of people might not know, there's a road going in there. But he's never done nothing with it. I mean, could we do that? Redo the verbiage to make it, somebody who's doing 5 lots at 10% compared to somebody doing 20 lots at 15%.
You can provide a range based as long as you can justify, if you've got a project that's gonna be exponentially more expensive than another one, 15% may be justified. And to answer your earlier question, yeah, with big, large scale projects that I see this bond and work for municipalities, 10% retainage is usually what's retained by the engineer before payout. Basically, it's kind of, and I'm sure many of you have seen that too, because I think a couple of you work in the engineering field, to hold back 10% retainage, upon final approval and reconciliation of a project. So 10% is pretty common. But if you want to say a sliding scale from 10 to 15%, I think you all can justify that based on, like you're suggesting, the economics of the project.
In the granted, wood's gone up. I'm sure electricals, I know wiring's gone up significantly. And other things like that. I don't want us to price us out of a developer coming in here and developing.
Well,
But then again, I don't want the city to be taken advantage of either.
see that development part, like our subdivision, once the engineer signs off that the drainage is correct, all of that is correct, those bonds at that point have to be released. So it has nothing really much to do with building houses. This is getting the infrastructure, the runoff, the stormwater, all of that under control. Which, if you remember, that subdivision missing a half a mile of road and it was signed off on.
So we could use some non-specific verbiage on this one. Will be between 10 and 15% depending on size and scope of subdivision.
Projects.
To be determined by planning commission,
Yeah,
between 10 and 15% to be determined.
right.
And then that, that protects the city a little bit. But we're not trying to outdo ourselves. We want people to come in here. We want them to build. But we also want fair market value too for what the city does as far as the infrastructure to help that developer, like putting the roads in, the sewer in, electrical. Not so much electrical, I guess, but roads and sewers is not cheap nowadays. Would you say 180,000, 185,000 just for that little bit of road that's out there?
And that's not an exact amount. That's just something that's ringing.
A ballpark figure. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
it's still a nice chunk of change.
yeah. So, okay. I got some notes and some verbiage on that.
Ready for page 5?
I am.
Okay, the very top one, item 3. All fees and costs of city representative and review of plats, plans, specifications, field inspections of improvements and any other aspects of subdivision review shall be paid by the subdivider. Just for clarification, you don't want that as a second part-time job.
No.
So that should be paid to the city clerk.
Yeah, and generally those review processes, I don't always review the final part. Our hired city engineer actually reviews it. And I just had some training on that the other day, that the city is the go-between, is all that is. And their engineers go out and inspect the whatever. But yes, the subdivider pays the city until it's done, and then the city relinquishes that money to the engineer. So, yeah.
But
City
there's got to be an accounting of it somewhere through the city.
Yeah, so let's have the city representative and engineer. Because that was a pretty good Zoom I had on that the other day, explaining how that all worked.
Yeah, and that it's paid to the city clerk.
Yeah. Or, yeah, essentially any city representative, if we keep it at that.
Okay, and then the same section, number 5, the final clause says, in accordance with the official fee schedule. Fees shall be paid on a monthly billing cycle unless authorized otherwise by the commission in accordance with the official fee schedule. I'm not sure what that's referring to.
Do you have a schedule? Or is there a schedule?
No, not on that. The only thing we have a schedule on is BZA hearings, planning commission hearings. There's a fee schedule that goes in with that. But we already have and that could be talked about when they have a hearing for a subdivision. There's, for instance, $200 for that hearing. And to get publishings out. Cause I won't figure out how many certifieds got to go out until they actually apply for the subdivision. So that fee schedule is broke down in basically our fee ordinance. So that's what they're talking about with that, because I'm not gonna spend 4 hours seeing how many people get the mailings
Right.
when they're like, oh, nope, I changed my mind. As soon as they come with that non-refundable hearing cost, okay, now I'll set you a hearing date. I'll send your mailers, get your newspaper ads. That is what they're talking about, that billing cycle. There is no real cycle or monthly. That should be,
Should that be taken out?
well, fees shall be paid on as needed to proceed or something like that.
They should be paid.
In a timely fashion.
And then,
Well, I had one, we had a BZA the other day or a couple months ago, and their payment come in 2 days after the deadline. So it's like, yep, nope, you don't get that. Now it's set for next month. Because I don't have the 10-day notification period to get all my information out. So that was on them. And she said, yeah, I should have sent that overnight instead of through standard mail.
Should have drove it over here,
Yeah, so.
unless you live out of town, I mean,
Yeah, so, just as needed to proceed in each step, otherwise it just gets postponed. Which that's the whole thing, I don't wanna schedule a hearing for all of us to show up and say, oh, by the way, look, we're not having a hearing this month. So before I schedule one, all those payments have to be in.
Putting it like that the fees will be paid as they're incurred. As the costs are incurred, something like that.
Yeah, I put as needed to proceed. If you are okay with that, I can word that really any way.
does it matter what the verbiage is as far as legal terms?
In this case, 6 1/2 does own up.
Okay, all right. I didn't think so, but
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, benchmark is there.
Okay. Anybody else have anything before page 5? So we're not going back too much farther. Okay.
no, I think
Next thing I had was definition, which is under B. E is that. Yeah, definitions. Find definitions provided in section 2 within this ordinance. Couldn't find the definition.
what page?
It says section 2 of
Section,
this ordinance.
Let me,
I couldn't find section 2.
I'll circle that and
Oh,
see if I
okay.
can come across them.
Yeah, because we've got a really good list of definitions in our old one, but that's in section 1
Yeah.
of the old ordinance.
Yeah, and that verbiage, will
Yeah,
change.
we're fine.
Well, you're saying it's not in section 2.
Well, I can't find section 2.
Yeah,
Do you have one?
No.
Not in my copy.
well, I didn't have anything either, and I should have put a question mark by that because I didn't know where.
And that
Section
could
2
have been
ordinance is
just
that.
from taking this ordinance, if I'm missing a section or a spot, in the whole thing.
Anybody else on page 5? What about page 6?
The very top item, item 6, where it says on the second line, the city engineer may review I think that should be shall.
Well, my concern was the city don't have an engineer. We have to hire one, correct?
Yeah. So coming back to that, I don't know how many of you were here when we did the Howard's subdivision here on Roosevelt.
There was, three, it was divided into three properties. I don't know if anybody was here when we did that. That one was so simple because it was all natural drainage. It wasn't a major subdivision. It was considered a minor. So some of that, those minor subdivisions to keep costs low, the may would maybe fall into those aspects, you know, because there was no swale for the road. It was all natural. Our ordinance states 8-inch drains to go under the driveway with that. Things, there was nothing stated on that. I just requested the owner to put a 6-inch in. If it covers up, if something happens later on, at least they won't have to tear out that portion of the driveway. So that's where, that was more like a judgment call. It wasn't in his subdivision ordinance or subdivision plot that the commission approved.
My concern is this says city engineer. The city don't have an engineer, or is that a misleading statement?
No, we sub one out.
Should it have some other type of verbiage saying city engineer contracted to the city, or?
I don't think so.
Anybody we
I don't-
hire
I
at the
don't-
city.
Just like me, I'm not your employee, but I'm your attorney, you know?
Yeah.
But you're a contractor.
I'm a contractor,
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean,
Yeah, so.
Okay,
he-
it's a fair point.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to bring up stuff to just bring stuff up.
Yeah,
I seen it, it kind of like, it don't sound right to me.
yeah.
But then again, I don't.
But yeah, as soon as we hire them, they technically become the employee.
Right.
If you want to call
For
it.
that period of time.
Because we hire, they don't get to hire the one they want. We hire the one we want to review that. So they, at that point, become a subcontractor / employee of the city.
Right.
Anybody else on page 6?
Could it just say the engineer of record? That's because we don't have there's nobody on this Knox city payroll that has a title of city engineer.
That's what I was saying. That's what kind of jumped out at me. You could say city engineer of record, I guess. I don't know.
The city approved engineer.
Okay. you
I
can
like,
do that.
I like approved. I like approved
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just so we don't have to do a whole bunch of rewording.
no, I don't, yeah, I know you gotta go back in there and retype.
Yeah, I'll be retyping. all
I'm
this.
sorry.
So the city
Approved engineer.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. Anything else on page 6 from anybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Notice of public hearing, at least 10 days before.
Yep.
As a retired postal employee, I'm telling you that ain't fine. For certified letters, they're going to attempt delivery. 5 days later, well, first it's going to take 3 days to get there. They're going to attempt delivery, then they're going to attempt to leave another second notice after 5 days.
Yeah.
So you're 8 days in.
You have a
and
suggestion
they've
on
got 5
days?
more days to pick it up.
That there falls under state statute, that 10 days.
Right.
Yeah, you're referencing IC 531, which is the public hearing statute. Get what you're saying. It is a good point. That is required before any public hearings. You've got to publish notice in the newspaper no less than 10 days prior to the actual hearing. But I mean, you're right. They could get their notices.
Late.
Well, and this is what I wanted to bring up to you for legal advice. I don't know if they still have it, but the post office used to have a service called certificate of mailing, which is left at the mailbox, but you have a receipt proving you mailed it on that date.
Yes, that's what I send out.
A certificate of mailing or a certified mail?
It's certified,
Different.
certified mail with receipt. So I get a stamp, a post stamp on my receipt that tells me when I sent that letter out.
You'll get the same thing on a certificate of mailing. It's a certificate that the postal employee fills out the to and the from. They put a stamp on it. They round date stamp it. That goes to you. That letter is delivered.
I think they
It's
got
not
rid
them.
of that because we
I
had,
don't know.
we had a whole bunch of different type of mailing things here. And we went through and found out that, yeah, really the only thing they do is certified mail with receipt is about the only one that they're doing now. And I don't know if it's to lessen the work with the carrier or what.
Yeah, we may want to look into that because you're talking the difference between the cost of a first class stamp
Hmm,
and $11
yeah.
or more for a certified return receipt.
Well, with our ordinance, the applicant is required to pay that mailings anyway. The city has, we passed an ordinance on that. We no longer have responsibility to pay any of the.
We passed the cost on, is that what?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I
the
remember you
cost
saying that.
doesn't affect us if you're considering the cost factor of it.
And that's what I was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
My question is on that. I know the mail can be. How you say this correctly? Yeah, I guess can be slow or not timely. I know 10 days is the state minimum. Can we go more to help him do a better job?
So you're gonna publish notice in the newspaper anyway, because that has to be posted and it has to run more than, not less than 10 days prior to the hearing. I mean, so you could see a circumstance, you're right, where they may get their certified mailing and sign for it, 3 days before the hearing, but it will have been posted in the newspaper for interested parties.
Yeah.
Okay, but
So-
my
The legal notification.
my
of that-
concern is sometimes, and Lonnie could probably say this, we have a lot of people who live in Illinois
Sure.
or have out-of-state
Sure.
landlords. By the time they get something and they turn around and hire a lawyer to represent them at this, that 10 days is now maybe 1 day, because somebody lives in Texas or, Alabama, with our postal service, it's okay, but it's not like it used to be, I think, sometimes.
The other part of that is the applicant. If they're wanting a timely issue, they're gonna result back to the state guidelines. So that one, I really highly recommend leaving that
Leave it
alone
alone? Okay.
because they have been notified by legal notification in the paper. And that's,
I mean, to answer your question, Tom, I'd be remiss if I didn't say you can set a higher standard, right? State statute sets the floor, you set the ceiling. But
Right.
yeah, and it's not the first time this has come up. It's come up in other municipalities I represent.
I'm,
And it's kind of the same sentiment. It's, if state statute says this, you don't want that catching you if you're.
I'm sure it's probably one of those ones that where some lawyers will argue, well, I understand what the state statute is, but my client lives at X,
I'm sure.
that client don't get your paper.
It's an equity argument. That's what they always, yeah.
Yeah, I,
But, and the other side of that though is that the developer, it's already been 8 days to get it into the newspaper. You gotta get it in the newspaper 8 days before publishing, or they can't get it in.
right,
So there's already 8 days that's gone by, and then another 10. And so.
yeah.
and generally they are sent out much earlier when I actually give the newspaper that notification. So you have 18 days. They're already sent out 18
The only
days.
thing you
prior.
send me, you send your stuff well ahead of the 10-day I mean, you get your stuff
Yeah.
out a month ahead of time.
Yeah.
So,
I would hate to put in writing more restriction than is required by state. If you want to have,
A speedy hearing.
if you want to have the mayor direct Lonnie to do it 4 months ahead of time, fine, just don't put it in writing.
Right.
Because then that opens you up for lawsuits.
And a lot of that you know, when something goes out, you know, a lot of people forget, all you have to do is come in and say, hey, I have a concern about this. What, can you get that out a week sooner? Or something, you know, and if the payments have already been paid, that stuff starts going out right away because I have a good feeling whether they're gonna go through with it or not. I say I don't start ahead of time, but if I have a spare minute, I start searching addresses, you know, so, but yeah, if somebody has a personal concern.
Sometimes I like to play devil's advocate because you do have people out there who will try and argue this. And I get what you're saying and I'm just. So, anything else on page 6? Anybody? Page 7? Page 8? 9?
Yeah.
Okey-dokey.
Um,
Which letter?
item E,
Item what?
E,
E?
primary plat.
Oh, okay.
After subdivision, after the submission of the primary plat and application, the commission shall have 21 days to review the information. Submission of the primary plat and application to whom? Because if it's submitted to Lonnie the day after our meeting, we ain't gonna get together in 21 days.
Yeah, those are turned into, in the aspects of preliminary plats to the director, which would be me. But that 21 days does need to be 31 days. So it can be, yeah, on that next, instead of calling a special meeting, you know, so we can put 35 days, 40 days, that puts us right in the next meeting. And if they come 5 days prior, I don't want to amend an agenda all of us, you know. So I would say, like what Jim was saying, instead of 21, take it to 35 days.
Or couldn't you put in there when the commissioner's next meeting, the following month?
Well, dude,
Because you might have cancel it.
yeah,
And then you've canceled the meeting. Now legally, did that time continue or didn't it? Because it was a scheduled meeting. So I'd hate to do that. This way, if you put in 31 days and you have to cancel a meeting, you've got time to have a special meeting to get it resolved.
yeah. And that's where I'm thinking 35 days.
Yeah.
You know,
35?
that's what I would recommend.
35?
That sounds reasonable. Yeah. And then that brings up the same thing on
The last,
the very last
Last
sentence
sentence.
of E, no application will be considered at a meeting unless it is filed with the commission at least 25 days before the date of such meeting.
I believe that should also be 35 or 40.
which is, what do you want it to be?
Well, the first one was 21. There's 4 days difference. I would recommend just put
Go
that at
40?
40. We're just giving us essentially another
Couple,
working days.
couple of more working
Otherwise,
days.
you don't have time to do any research on
Yeah.
Okay. That was it on that one?
it.
Page 10, anybody?
We've been here about an hour to pick up next month.
Well, we'll go to,
I have two things I want to bring up under,
page 11.
no, on the agenda on any other items.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll come back and start on page 9 next month, right? Or 10, excuse me.
Page 10.
Page
We'll
10.
resume page 10.
Okay. I mean, takes time.
At least we're going right along. Okay. Any other business? Jim?
Yeah. Uh, Last year, we rewrote rules of procedure. And Jeff Burke turned them into somebody for retyping.
They are retyped.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up so we could get enough copies for everybody. The last thing I have is we talked briefly about the no whistle ordinance, so I did some research on that. And we were concerned about the pedestrian crossings. Okay,
And how much,
by
how much money it might cost the city?
it's not gonna cost us anything, because by definition, and this was just revised January 16th of 2026. So we're talking weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Pedestrian grade crossing means, for purpose of this part, a separate designated sidewalk or pathway where pedestrians, but not vehicle, cross railroad tracks. Sidewalk crossings contingent with or separate but adjacent to public highway rail grade crossings are presumed to be part of the public highway and grade crossing. So you don't need any pedestrian. The only possible pedestrian crossing we have is the alley between Main and Shield.
I mean, over there, but next door
Behind
to
the dollar
dollar store.
So the specific clause they were talking about is for specific pedestrian walkways, not for a sidewalk next to a road. Okay,
That's like their definition.
okay.
So what's the next step from here then?
So do we want to pursue that? As far as looking into it?
Or as a group, or do we want to go with the no whistle ordinance or not?
Well,
I'm interested in learning more about it.
I'd
That's
like
for
to
sure.
see what Mishawaka has.
I'd like to know, yeah, I'd like to know too. I'm right there by the track too.
Yeah, looked up their ordinances on,
Yeah.
online, Mishawaka's whistle ordinances, and
There are, and I think Bill came up with this originally. You're not familiar with this? Okay, this is published by the Federal Railroad Administration, and it will give you specifics how to go about doing it. And I'll give this to Lonnie, the Xerox off for everybody for the next meeting. It even goes into, we discussed all the different whistles that they do coming through town. They don't. It only appears that they do because of the length of them. When you go through a municipality, it requires one long, one short, one long. The only other whistle that's allowed is a danger whistle. If something, an animal or something,
and that's a continuous blast?
it's a short blast, and if they don't move, another short blast.
Oh, okay.
But even the whistles are spelled out. I mean, it's a really good reference.
And what is the name of that reference then?
No train horn, guide to the quiet zone establishment process. Federal Railroad Administration.
You're gonna have a hard time doing anything that because the railroads were here first.
Well, you really don't. You just have to meet their specifications. And it gives you addresses and
Email addresses and things like that.
phone numbers, and so if you run into something, you've got resource.
But it would be a good thing to also look up your um, not only state, but also your federal person who's in charge of your district or area as far as the government goes, to help get them on board, to help you with the process.
The railroads will actually work with you on that. They have people specifically to go out and help you put up a quiet zone.
I didn't know that.
And it
I
does.
figured they'd be against it.
Your regional contact people by state. So
I figured they'd be against that because
Yeah.
they want the whistle there to inform people that they're coming through, so there's no accidents.
but they're not liable if it's
Yeah,
quiet zone.
we're signing the waiver once we do that.
Yeah, I realize that.
So,
And you're not either, because you've been abided by federal law.
Right, and we followed their guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we just have to be real careful not to go about assuming a definition or regulation. We need to do our research and make sure that we're accurate.
That's where we would drop a little bit of a letter into Mr. Justin's hands and say, does this sound right?
Well, and I think it sounds like the city council's hiding behind this.
Well,
yeah, there's been a lot of conversation in the last few
I've
years.
talked to different council members that seem to be interested in it, even the mayor.
And I've had complaints from citizens out here, I'd say not a whole lot, 3, 4, 5 a year, it's like, can we do something about that?
So it's,
Most people just
Well, it's a
accept
quality
it.
of place issue, You gotta make a place nice so that people move there, so.
The handbook is very honest and upfront. It tells you you're not gonna get it done quick.
oh, yeah.
And it tells you step by step, you gotta have this before you do that, before you do the next thing.
All I got's time, hopefully, hope I do.
Yeah, so yeah, I can make copies of that for everybody. I got a note here. And go from there.
Any other business? Do you have anything? What about those houses that, demolition? Is that?
Yeah, that's code
It's
enforcement.
got nothing to do with us, okay.
I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections?